On day 29, we'll leave Rapid City and drive to the State Game Lodge in Custer State Park, take a Jeep safari down to the Buffalo Corral and the Wind Cave National Park, then come back to the State Game Lodge and drive down to Hot Springs, the Mammoth Site. After we leave there, we're going to go back through Wind Cave National Park for the last time and also Custer State Park before heading back to Rapid City for the night. As we leave Rapid City, it's raining a little bit, but it's in the mid-30s, and so we're going to really feel that on the Jeep Safari. Soon we're entering Custer State Park, and we're going to go off exploring a little on our own. We're here a little early for our Jeep Safari. This is the largest state park in the nation. While out looking around, we noticed the elk out in the pasture. This must be all the ones they have, because they do only have a small herd right now. One of the cows and the calf seem to be limping. Don't know exactly what happened. Did they get hit by a car, or were they attacked by wolves or some other animals? And then it's time to head to the game lodge as it starts to rain. A couple of days ago, we looked across the northern part of Custer State Park. Now we're going to look at the Wildlife Loop Road and into Wind Cave National Park. We go to Custer State Game Lodge, and this is a very historic place. President Calvin Coolidge stayed here for a while, and also Dwight Eisenhower later. We're catching the open Jeep safaris that go out to look for buffaloes like this. That's Deborah the Explorer in the blue hoodie. She's cold. One of the larger herds that you can see in this area of buffalo is at Custer State Park. Unfortunately, we'll not get to see them close up here. We'll explain that in a little bit. As we drive out through the park, we notice the mixed grass prairies, and soon we're seeing a couple of pronghorn down by French Creek. There are about 250 pronghorn in the park, and they run at about 60 miles an hour. They shed their horns each year, and both males and females have horns. They have eyes that bulge out so they can see 340 degrees around them. And about 80% of their diet is sagebrush. They're trying to cross French Creek, and it's kind of flowing fairly fast for them right at this moment. French Creek is the place where Custer's expedition found gold, just a few miles to the east of here. And that set off the gold rush into the Black Hills, which eventually ended the Indian way of life. There's enough grass in the park to feed about 1,000 bison during the winter. The problem is they have 13 to 1,500 after the breeding season, so they have a big roundup. Normally these fields are covered with bison like this, but on the last Friday in September there's a huge roundup of all the animals. About 100 cowboys and 100 cowgirls on horseback round them up. They're all in the corral waiting to get processed. This all started out in 1914 with 36 bison reintroduced into this area, and now, as we say, there's about 1,500. On the third Saturday in November, they sell off about 300 to 500 of the bison at an auction, making about $1 million. This keeps the number in the herd and manageable. Also, there's a pronghorn male that was captured during the roundup, and he's inside the fence right now. The problem is that the buffalo carry brucellosis, which will sterilize cattle. So each year they round them up and they vaccinate them against brucellosis and take blood to find out if the females are pregnant or not. They then brand the new calves and release them. They keep random ones to sell during the sale, and the rest are let back into the park. Since there are no bison to look at in Custer State Park, we've gone all the way down to Wind Cave National Park, which is just south of there, to look at their bison for a while. The herds are all led by an older female. The males are kicked out at 3 years old because they cause too much trouble. Males live to be about 14 years old and females to about 30 years old. In order to get milk from a buffalo, the calf has to stick its head up underneath the female and then butter really hard to get the milk flowing. So when they start getting horns, they decide to wean them. And this is the lead female of this group of bison. Calves recognize their mothers not by sight, but by sound, by the grunts they make. You'll note that they swing their head as they walk because they can't see directly in front of them, and they'll walk right into a tree if they didn't. Bison don't have any front teeth, only grinding teeth in the back. And so they can't bite grass off. They grab it with their tongue and pull it out and then stick it into their mouth. And here's a pronghorn male. They do lose their antlers each year and regrow them. They're made out of hair. The males have these fancier horns, but they also have the black spot on their neck to recognize them. Bison are ruminants like cows, so they chew their cud laying around for most of the day. Although the breeding season is mostly ended, here's a male guarding a female. What he does is he stays right with her, thinking she's in heat and trying to wait until she's ready to breed. But here comes a problem. There's a much bigger male than him headed his way, and he decides to back off and let him check out the female. They have scent glands in the top of their mouth that can tell if a female's in heat or not, and that's what he's checking right now. Is she really in heat? And usually where you find bison, you find black-tailed prairie dogs, and they're all over the place. This is the largest prairie dog town in the world. As we said when we were here at Wind Cave, this one is 30 square miles of prairie dog town. Now, the males only connect their tunnels with two females And so it's a breeding group. You can't cross the entire thing underground, but there usually are 2 or 3 openings for each connected burrows. Prairie dog pups stay with their parents for a year before leaving to form their own nest. This male bison that's off by himself is 9 years old. You can see the 0 where he was branded in 2010. So he's one of the older bison. They only live to about 14 years as males because they fight so much. Females live about twice that long. And so this is a bull in his prime. And now it's time to head back into Custer State Park and finish up the wildlife loop. We're not going to see a whole lot of wildlife until we get to the northern end of the loop, and there's some bighorn sheep. There are gaps in the fencing around the park so that bighorn sheep can go in and out of them. They're the only animals that roam over a larger range than the park itself. Unfortunately, this also puts them in the vicinity of domestic goats, and they're susceptible to a disease that will kill them that goats carry. So the herd is actually dying off. And now it's time to leave our open Jeep, which has been so cold, and get back in our warm car with the windows up. As we head south, we see some white-tailed deer, a doe and her fawn from this year. We're heading south to Hot Springs, South Dakota to see the Mammoth Site. Along the way we have to go through Wind Cave National Park, and here we see some pronghorn, and up on the hill there's one of those male bison that wander around by themselves. They will be doing their roundup a little later in the year. And here comes a big bull bison as he's going to walk straight towards us and then around the back of our car. Thought for a minute there he might attack us. Once past us, he picks up some speed. And here's another bull chewing his cud. It continues to rain as we head south, and soon we're entering Hot Springs, South Dakota. They do have actually hot springs here and also bathhouses, and we could have gone by and seen them, but we're going to a paleontology site called the Mammoth Site. In 1974, they were getting ready to build an apartment complex, and there was a hill in the middle of the area, so they started a bulldozer leveling it and ran into some large bones. And then they started excavating and found what we're about to see. As we walk up to the site, we see various stones and interpretations of what they are and how they were formed. Inside we see the Haber mammoth skeleton. This is a woolly mammoth. It was found in Wisconsin. And you can see how the teeth are and how small the mouth is. We'll talk about the teeth in a minute. The Columbian mammoths were about twice the size of the woolly mammoths and not covered with a lot of hair. And now it's time to head in and see the excavation site itself. This will be our tour guide. We have headsets, so she doesn't talk very loud and it's hard to record. The red around the area is the clay that would have kept the animals from getting out. They have found 122 tusks. That means there are 61 mammoths here. 3 are woolly mammoths, the rest were Columbia mammoths. The ceiling height is the original height of the hill before they started cutting it down. Mammoths, like elephants, don't have front teeth. They only have molars in the back to grind up what they eat. They're flat structures that grind against each other. Here you can see it a little bit better. Throughout their life, they'll have 6 sets of these teeth, each set getting a little bigger until they die. Thus, you can age them with their teeth. Here we see some swirls in the mud. These are footprints. An elephant stuck its foot into the mud and had to suck it out. And this is an active archaeological site. They're still doing excavations today. Many of the bones they have left in situ, or in other words, where they found them. Here's some leg bones. You see, here's the upper leg bone, and then here are the lower leg bones. As we walk on around the pit, an interesting thing is that we can sex those mammoths by their pelvis, and every single one of the 31 found here are males, ranging in from old to young. Also found here, right out in the middle, was an unusual skull. This does not belong to a mammoth. It belongs to a bear. This is the skull of a giant short-faced bear. He would have been 6 foot tall at the shoulder and stood 12 feet tall on his back legs, a very formidable adversary. As we look on around, there's nearly a complete Columbian mammoth skeleton. The hips and legs are towards us with the ribs, but the head's been broken off at the neck, so the neck and head are not with it. This is their most complete Columbian mammoth skeleton. It has all the parts there, just in a jumble. The pelvises, ribs, backbone. It has the skull with a tusk in it, the teeth, and leg bones, and it's almost totally complete, just in a jumble and hard to see. This will give you a little bit better perspective as it curled around and laid down here, what's left here. And here's another side. You can see the backbone and ribs better here. And this Columbian mammoth skull is called Beauty because it's so complete with both tusks still in place. We have currently excavated about 20 feet, but core samples say there's 45 to 50 feet at least below this. And here's a woolly mammoth skeleton and a model of one made. Note that the woolly mammoth is about half the size of the Columbian mammoth. Comparing them to elephants, we have the Columbian mammoth and the African elephant. The brown one is the woolly mammoth, and then the gray one is the Asian elephant. So how did all these bones get here? Well, out in the middle of a plains was a sinkhole, and around the edge of that sinkhole was clay. It was a steep cliff and very slippery, and the mammoths, once they got in, couldn't get out, and so they died in there. Along with the mammoths being in there were 85 species of plants and fauna, coyotes and squirrels, rabbits, wolves and weasels, camels and pronghorn, and bison. Longhorn bison were also found here, measuring over 8 feet across the horns. Baby woolly mammoths have been found in Siberia, this female in 2007 and this male in 1977. Here we see a massive Columbian mammoth, half again as tall as an African elephant, and a dwarf mammoth, only 3 feet tall, from the Channel Islands. Ancient people built mammoth bone tents to live in. And now it's time for us to head out. On the way out of town, we stop at a waterfall. Note that the waterfall is cutting into the rock as it goes down the channel. And across the street, there's Pistol Patty's Antiques and Chocolates. Now we leave Hot Springs behind and we pass again through Wind Cave National Park and stop and see their bison some more. This will be our last time to go through Wind Cave, and soon we'll be going through Custer State Park for the last time also. Along the way, we pass a flock of wild turkeys on the side of the road. Soon we're entering Custer State Park for the last time. And on down the road just a little ways we see 3 coyotes hunting. Watch them jump and catch their prey. On down the road we come to some white-tailed deer. The doe runs off, but the 2 yearling fawns stay, one a buck with spikes and one a female without. We keep heading northward toward Rapid City, and we bump into some burros. The burros were brought to the park in the 1920s from Mexico to carry people to the top of Hardin Peak. Now they've just been turned loose and go wild, and Deborah loves feeding them carrots. We've run into the burros near the Bison corral. They're still not working them. Maybe it's just too cold and wet for them today. Again, we cross over French Creek. A reminder that this is where they found gold. That started the gold rush into this area. Then there's a female pronghorn. She's a little skittish and she's running off, heading up the hill. We can see how she trots along. She's definitely not hitting her top speed. And as she goes over the hill, we leave Custer State Park and continue to head north toward Rapid City. Soon we're entering the city, and this brings us to the end of day 29.